name is Natalia Gunina. I'm the head of foreign languages and professional communication here at Tambov State Technical University. And today we will be talking about developing learners' writing skills. So in other words, we will try to work out some ways how to make our learners better writers. And sorry. Denise, I don't know how it works. Just a moment. I'm really sorry. So before we move on to some serious stuff, I would like to explain to you how the idea of this seminar appeared and why I decided to invite teachers of English to Technical University. Because obviously there is no link between Technical University and teaching English at school. But in early November, I was lucky to take part in the ELT residence. It was a special project organized by two teacher trainers, Zhenya Bakin and Natasha Belausova. They are super overqualified professionals, Delta and CELTA, and graduates of different programs, master's programs. So they are great professionals, and they organized this training seminar for 40 teachers from Russia. And there was a selection process. I applied for this program and I was selected. So for 6 days, we went through very intensive training for 6 hours every day. And honestly, it was quite good. I finished this training inspired and very motivated. And as part of this project, I'm supposed to organize similar training sessions for teachers in our region. And I'm very thankful that you have come here today. And why did I choose writing? So I decided to talk about writing because writing has always been of interest for me. Besides, I am a YGE expert, and so I'm quite familiar with the requirements for writing paper. And so what are we going to talk about today? So what's on our agenda? So why do we teach writing? Why do students struggle with writing? Because quite often our learners are reluctant to write anything and they find it quite boring. How can we help our learners to become better writers? And what activities can help our learners to improve their writing skills? So I will start with some theory, a bit of input, but I promise it won't take long. So the first question that I want to ask you, why do we teach writing? So I will give you a clue because basically there are two main reasons why we do it. Why do we teach writing? Any ideas? Because we want our students to pass an exam. Yes, right. And but I mean, do we teach writing for learning or do we teach writing for writing? And how these two things differ? How are these two aspects of writing different? How are they different? Writing for learning and writing for writing. Is it the same thing or is it different? What do we mean by writing for learning? Yes, so we focus mainly on the language. We want our learners to produce accurate texts in writing. So in this case, language, grammar, and vocabulary are our main concern. Yes, and when we teach our learners writing for writing? What is the primary goal of this? Yes, we want them. Yes, we want to learn them how to put their ideas into words, right? Yes, definitely. We always want our students to produce accurate pieces of writing. That's the teacher's major concern. And I think that's right, because we prepare our students for exams. And one of the requirements of any exam is to produce an accurate product. So that's true. So when we teach our learners writing for learning, we focus mainly on the language. So the language itself is the main focus of our attention. But when we teach our learners writing for writing, the whole text is important. So we teach them how to construct the text, its layout, the style, and the effectiveness. Everything becomes important. Okay, so, and I would like to draw your attention to this quote by Jeremy Hammer, and he wrote two very famous books on English methodology. One is How to Teach English, and another one is How to Teach Writing. And he said, writing for writing is directed at developing the students' skills as writers. In other words, the main purpose for activities of this type is that students should become better at writing, whatever kind of writing it might be. So now I would like you to think a little bit and come up with the ideas to this question. Why do students struggle with writing? What do they find especially difficult when they need to write something? So the structure of the sentences. They don't know how to construct a sentence. They are not familiar with the word order. So grammar, in other words, syntaxis is one of their concerns. Right? Any other problems? Lack of vocabulary. So they do not have enough vocabulary to put their ideas into words. Yes? Any other issues? Ideas, yes, lack of ideas. Quite often they say, I don't know what to write. I don't know what to say, how to answer this question. So, yes, so basically our learners struggle to organize and use mechanics of writing. They are slow and inefficient in selecting the right words to express an idea, and they struggle to develop their ideas fluently. So these are three main problem areas that we as teachers have to deal with and have to help our learners to cope with these three challenges. Sorry. And also, I would like you to think about this question. How do people write? Is writing a linear process, or is it happening in a different manner? I can show you two diagrams. The first one shows a linear process, and the second one is a process wheel in terms of Jeremy Hammer. So it looks like a cycle. So which of these two pictures do you think shows the real writing process, the way people write? Do we write in a linear sequence, or do we do it like this? We start with planning, then we prepare a draft, then we edit this draft and come with a final version. Or maybe we redraft, re-edit, and replan our writing while working on it. Of course, the second one, and our learners should be aware of that. We should not expect them to write sequence by sequence, producing one step after another. That's impossible, because writing is a creative process. Okay, and what do you teach your students to write? As teachers of English, you are expected to teach them to write quite a lot of different things. What do you teach them to write? I prepared a list to help us. So what do you teach them to write? Which of these pieces? All of them, all of them. And which of them do you teach more often, and which of them do you teach less often? Maybe things that you never teach them. Poems, right. But of course we teach them to write emails, letters, and essays, especially those who prepare their students for national exams. So what 3 most important things do learners need to remember when they write a text? I didn't expect it to pop up on the screen. I was going to ask you a question, honestly. So when we teach our students to write, we need to tell them that when writing a product, they have to remember about 3 the most important things. And one of them is the purpose. Why am I writing? The second is the audience. Who is my addressee, or who am I writing to? And the third is, of course, content structure, which means how you can best arrange ideas, facts, and arguments. So if learners take into account all these things, they are more likely to produce the piece of writing that will be effective, coherent, cohesive, and achieve the ultimate goal. Sorry. Yes, and I was also going to say that when we teach them about such things, we should remember that every time there will be different writing, depending on what you teach them. If you teach them a postcard, so what is the purpose of a postcard? Why do people write postcards? Yes, they say hello if they are traveling somewhere, or if they want to congratulate people on some important events in their life. So usually postcards are quite short. And what style do we teach our students to use when writing a postcard? Of course, informal. So different purposes, different writing. And the same is about audience, different writing. And different genres, different writing. Okay, and what is the best way of teaching writing? There is quite an array of different approaches. Product approach, process approach, genre-based approach, or maybe a combination of them all. So is there a correct answer to this question? What is the best approach? Can we put it like this? Yeah, probably a combination of different approaches, because depending on what we want to teach them, we choose an approach. If you want to teach them to write an email or a letter, you would probably choose what? Product approach, yes, because in a product you use a sample, which is used as a basis to create your own product. But with a process approach, it happens slightly differently, because in the process approach you have to follow certain steps, starting from brainstorming of ideas, moving to some controlled practice, and finishing with free writing and creating their own product. So depending on what you want to teach your students, you choose an approach. And I was also going to mention this interesting model, which is called 5 E's teaching and learning model. Is anybody familiar with it? What do you think these 5 E's stand for? So actually you can see them here. So this diagram shows the learning cycle, how we teach, how we do not teach writing, how we teach anything. So this is the model which can be successfully implemented in teaching anything. And the main idea of this model is that learners take a very proactive position, and the teacher is a facilitator, the teacher is not an instructor here. So basically it's the same as guided discovery. Have you ever heard this term, guided discovery? When you guide your learners through the material and they come up to the knowledge which you do not teach them, but they discover it. So in this learning cycle, you start with engagement, and in this stage, students are engaged with some challenging or stimulating, maybe question, or you can show them something. So the main point of this stage is to get your learners interested, to arouse their interest, so to ask them something so that they start thinking. And at the same time, you set the context for the follow-on task, for the task which you are going to do next. And the next stage is exploration, and this is actually the most important stage, because in this stage, learners work with some materials. They are supposed to either to answer the questions or maybe do some matching exercise. But the ultimate goal of this stage is to explore some knowledge and discover it. The next stage is explanation. So who do you think actually explains in this stage? Is it the teacher or the learners? Of course, the learners, right, because the teacher is not an instructor. The teacher is a facilitator, someone who helps the learners to explain what they explored in the previous stage. And the next stage is elaboration. So what do you think happens in this stage? How do learners elaborate on the material which they have explored and already explained, which they have acquired? Because explanation is a kind of acquisition stage. It means that they have acquired this knowledge and they understand it. So in the elaboration stage, they work on some materials where they do some practical tasks to show that they know how to use what they've learned. And the last stage is evaluation. So, of course, evaluation is always the final stage in any activity, because this is where the feedback appears, not only feedback from teachers, but also from learners. All right, so this is the explanation of what actually happens in each stage, and you will have this presentation and you will read it once again. Okay, and what are we going to do now? So that was the theoretical input, so much for theory. Now it's time to practice. So we are going to have a demo lesson, and you will have to put on your students' shoes and writers' hats, whatever. So it's going to be like a lesson, and then I will ask you some questions about the stages of this lesson, about what the teacher did and the learners. You are the learners. Of course, we will do it much quicker because it's for school children, and teachers are much quicker with such things. Are you ready for the demo lesson? So I've prepared some handouts for you. Can you pass it on, please? I've prepared some handouts for you, and but before you get them, we can start. So look at this photo. Who do you see in this photo? Friends. So what can you say about their age and maybe their nationality? Where are they, and what is the occasion? So definitely they do not come from the same family. They are not relatives. How do you know? They look different. Their faces are different. Right, so you said that they are going to celebrate Christmas. How did you guess that it's Christmas? Yes, what sort of decorations do you see in the photo? A Christmas tree, right? Hats, right? Santa hat and Mickey hat. Yes, so definitely these girls are going to celebrate something. And they are friends, right? So one of these girls is actually my daughter. And this photo was taken when she was an exchange student, and this is her friend Hikari from Japan, and they shared the same room while staying in the host family. So, and Hikari sent a letter to my daughter. Her name is Polina, and the topic of this email is summer holidays. Right, so let's read the task. Read it silently, and I will read it out. We are going to visit Moscow in September. What's the weather like then? Do we need to bring our warm clothes? Is there anything we need to take along with us to Moscow? By the way, yesterday I bought the necessary vegetables and cooked Russian borscht. Thank you for the recipe. Everyone liked it very much. So, and the first thing I would like you to do is to read the letter that Polina, it's not the letter, it's an email, sorry. I keep saying that it's a letter. So, an email that Polina wrote to her friend Hikari, and find the answers to these questions. I will give you a minute or so to look through the email and find the answers to these questions. Finished. So let's go over the questions. The first one, why did Polina write the email? Why did she write it? Sorry? Yes, she replied to the email which she received from her friend. Next question, what did Hikari want to know? What did she want to know? Sorry? She wanted to know about the weather, yes, clothes. Right. Okay, the next question. What did Polina write about the weather? It's usually quite warm, right. What did she write about the clothes? Yes, so she mentioned some clothes that are worth taken alone to Moscow, right. And why did she mention the umbrella? Yes, because it might rain sometimes. And what did Polina ask her friend about? Yes, about food and what she likes eating. Yes, right. So what I would like you to do now is to move on to the next task, task 2. And here you have the same letter, and you have to match the steps in writing this letter with the parts of the letter. What happens in each part of the letter? would you like to compare your answers with a partner? Or if you are absolutely sure that it's okay, we can move on. But in a real lesson, it would be really important to ask your students to compare the answers because they might have some problems with the language. So what's the first stage? Greeting, right? The second, say thank you, right? And respond to the news, because if you just say thank you, that's not enough. It sounds a little bit abrupt, rude. So what happens next? Yes, she answered the questions. The next step, asking questions. Right. So probably at this stage, it's not important to tell your students that they have to ask 3 questions. So maybe it's not really necessary to focus on that, because what we want to learn them is the layout, and the number of questions is not really important. That can come up later. So focus on what you want to teach them. What is next? And the email and sign off. Yes, that's right. So now let's, without looking at this letter, try to remember the steps. What was the first step? What do you have to do when you write an email? Yes, so the first is greet, right? What do you do next? You say thank you and respond to the news. What do you do next? Answer the questions, right. What do you do next? Ask questions. What happens next? End the email and sign off, right. Very good. So now let's move on. And the next task is to, you have the same, look at the same email in task 1 and underline the phrases that you think help to make this email coherent and cohesive. Find some linking words, some transitional devices that make this email logical and coherent. So underline the linking words. Do you know what linking words are? Remember that you are students. You might not know what linking words are. So it might be logical at this phase to raise your hand and ask, excuse me, and what is a linking word? But of course they do know, because you can use this model when teaching in the 9th grade, when they probably don't know the word linker. And when you tell your learners, find the linking words, and you see that they look at you and they do not, in bewilderment, and they do not understand. Of course, you have to explain that linking words are special transitional devices, if it helps. You can switch to Russian. I know that there is a lot of criticism again regarding using Russian in the lesson, but I think it's okay. То есть на этом этапе можно было бы сказать, что это средство логической связи, это слова, которые соединяют между собой идеи в предложениях, и можно было бы, если опять не поняли, привести пример какое-нибудь слова. Surprisingly, например. Или что-то из письма выбрать, какое-нибудь одно слово в качестве образца. So that they know what to look for. Потому что если они не знают, что такое linking words, if they don't know what to look for, they will probably fail to do this activity. So what linking words have you found? Definitely. By the way. Actually. Of course. I'm sure. Sorry. Yes, right. I'm sure, definitely, of course, actually, by the way. Absolutely. Well done. So now let's move on to the next activity. Let me have a handout. Sorry. So let's move on to some other tasks that you might do with your learners when teaching them to write their mail. Remember that it's the same lesson. This is not just an activity which you might use. That's the same lesson that you need. This activity is worth doing in this lesson. That's task 4. So we can open and close an informal email in different ways. Where do these phrases appear in the email? So there is a list of 10 phrases. So with a partner, try to divide these phrases into 2 categories. Phrases that appear in the opening and phrases that appear at the end of the email. So work in pairs with your partner, with the person sitting next to you. Okay, I see that you are almost done, because for teachers, of course, it's not a challenging task. But for learners, it might take longer, because they need to read all these 10 phrases and make sure that they understand them. And if they do not understand that, they might need your help. They might ask you some questions. So let's look at the phrases that we use for the opening. So actually, it's you who are supposed to say what phrases are used for the opening. So these are the phrases for the opening, and these are useful phrases for closing. Okay, and now let's move on to the next task, task 5. You can conclude your email in different ways. So with the same partner, divide these cliches into 2 categories. And here you have to use a slightly different approach. You have to decide which of them are informal and which are neutral. They all can be used in emails, but which are informal, which are neutral. 2 minutes. Phrases that are very informal, that you write to a friend, to a person you know very well. And neutral means that you can use them in also informal writing. Ready? Finished. So which phrases do you think are informal? Cheers, hugs, love, best. You think best is informal? Talk soon, right? Take care. No, take care is not informal. You think take care is neutral. Always is informal. All right, let's look at the answers. Do you agree? Always and forever, of course informal. I forgot to include always and forever. So would you teach your students, would you teach your learners all these phrases? Do you think you should teach them all? No. Which of these phrases would you choose to teach your students to write an email if you are preparing them for your exam? Best wishes, to be on the safe side. So only best wishes. With love, or just love. All right. So and why do you decide against the other phrases? What do you not like about them? Do you think your learners do not need them? Or what do you want to teach them? Do you want to teach them to pass the exam? Or do you want to teach them to become confident writers who know what language to use in different contexts? Yes, that's where the problem is. So quite often we focus on preparing the exams. And when we focus only on exam preparation, we think that lots of things are not necessary. Our students do not need them. So it's better to teach them best wishes, and they will pass their exam with successfully. They won't have any problems. But again, it's about what you want to teach them. If you want to teach them writing for writing, probably you should teach them all these phrases. But maybe those who prepare for the exam should bear in mind that it's better to stick to this phrase. If you want to pass the exam, just stick to this phrase. But in real life, there are quite a lot of phrases that you can use. All right. So, and now we can move on to the next stage, but probably we can skip it because this is actually where the real writing happens. And you are supposed, now we need to read the new task. And do you think it would be better to write this email in class or to give it as a home assignment, as homework? What do you think would be a better option? To write it in class or to ask them to write it at home? To write in class. Why? I also think that it's better to write it in class. Yeah, because that's the elaboration stage. Yes, we know how tricky our learners are. They can cheat. And what's the point of asking them to do it at home? Maybe they have a private tutor who will write this email for them, and you will be misled and confused. You won't have a real picture of what they can do. And anyway, you want to teach them to write it. Do you think they can write it in a group, or should they do it individually? What would be a better choice for the first task, for the first time when they write an email? In groups, yes, to divide them in groups so that they can write this email together and they will come up with different ideas. They will help each other. Maybe some of them have already forgotten what is the first step, that they should greet or that they should say thank you after they greet their friend. So they should do it together, and you give them the same amount of time as they have to do it in the real exam, 20 minutes. And what would you do after that, after they have written this email? What do you think would be a good follow-up activity? To read it out. Yes, I would probably do the same. I will ask one student from each group to read their email. And what would the other students do? Discuss. What are they going to discuss? Because when someone starts reading, what do others do? They do nothing. They sit back. They get their smartphone and start surfing the internet. how to encourage the rest of the group to listen to the... Yes, to ask them to take notes of the answers, for example, or the questions. So you should definitely give them a task, what they need to do while listening to these emails. Because if you do not ask them to do something, they won't do anything, they won't listen to each other. So if you want them to listen and to learn from this, give them a task. All right. So that's enough for the demo lesson. And now I want you to reflect on this lesson a little bit. So let's remember what we started with. What did the teacher do first, and what stage was it? What did I do first? I showed you the photo. Why did I do it? I wanted to engage you. I wanted you to become interested. And I told you that this is my daughter, so it was very personal. And I know that learners value such things. And they start trusting their teachers if they show photos from their family album, for example. That doesn't mean that I encourage you to bring your photos and show them to your student. But anyway, you need to come up with a way how to get them engaged. So what are the ways of getting them engaged apart from showing photos from a family album can you come up with? Can you suggest? What else can you do to show them a video? Yes, maybe. And what kind of video? That was about Moscow, the weather in Moscow, traveling, so maybe something about traveling. But you're going to write, to teach them how to write an email to a friend. So maybe you should start by asking them questions. Do you have a pen friend? Do you ever write emails or letters to your friends? How did you meet? So you should engage them by asking them about their writing experience. That would probably be the best thing to do. Or maybe to show something, and there are lots of things what you can show. A funny meme, for example. Sorry? Yes, so in this stage, we set the context for the next activity and get them interested. So what did the teacher and the learners do next? What did you do next? You read the letter and you answered the questions. It wasn't just reading the letter. And why do you think I asked you to read the letter? What was it? It was a sample. So I showed you a sample, and this is a kind of model which I expect the student to produce for the next class. So it's really important to give them a model so that they know what you want them to do, how to do it correctly. Because if you just start with the explanation that in a personal email you start with greeting, then you say thank you, of course it's okay, but it's very boring and it's off-putting, and they start hating writing. They should learn how to write, being excited, engaged and motivated, and that's our job, to get them excited about it. Because otherwise they will be bored and they will hate it from the very first step. So when did the teacher ask learners to summarize the steps in writing an email? What stage was it? When did I ask you to do it? After you matched the parts of the letter, and then I asked you to name these steps again. So what stage was it? Let's go back to 5E model. Engage, explore, engage, explain. Let me show it. This one. So what stage was it? Yes, explain. That was the explanation stage. That's when the learners explained what they understood, how they are supposed to write an email. Sorry, I don't remember the questions. What task did the learners do in the elaboration stage? So then was the elaboration stage and you did some activities. What did you do? Yes, you worked on the language, on the linkers and the closing and opening phrases. Why is it important to do at this stage? So that learners know what phrases they can use. They need to have some examples. Right. And what we didn't have an evaluation stage because we didn't complete the elaboration stage. The completion of the elaboration stage is writing the email itself. So what do learners do in the evaluation stage? What would you ask them to do? No, that's the elaboration stage. You finish the elaboration stage with asking them to write their own email. And in the evaluation stage, they give feedback on each other's writing. And you can ask them to take notes of what the other people in the group wrote, or you can ask them what questions they asked, or you may ask them, how many similar questions did you ask? Because basically they come up with the same questions. So you need to set them the task for this evaluation stage so that it actually happens, because otherwise it won't happen. All right, and now we will move on to tasks and activities, that can improve, that can help our learners to become better writers, to improve their writing skills. And one of the activities that I think can be quite effective and really useful is to ask your students. You can do it in every lesson. Do your students write enough in class? And what do they write if they do? Do you want them to write more in class? They don't like writing at all, I know that. And do you want them to write more? Of course you do. So if you are studying the topic food, what you can start the class with? You can get them in pairs, give them handouts where they have to complete the sentences. And then they read these sentences to each other and compare the ideas. And you as a teacher walk around the class and monitor what they write, and if they make mistakes, you correct them. How much time do you think this activity will take? 5 minutes, probably 5 minutes, because they have to complete just 4 sentences and read them out quickly. So if you want your students to memorize these phrases, and do you think these phrases are good for an email? Can they come up in the email? Yes? Yes, if you have to write an email about the eating habits in your family. So probably they can borrow some of the ideas, and this activity teaches them to put their ideas into words, and since they work in pairs, they can help each other. They can correct each other. But if they both fail, you as a teacher give a hand with grammar, with language, with spelling. Would you like to practice this activity? If not, we can move on. And so this is just another example. But I think that it works well. And it doesn't take long. And anyway, students do some writing. All right. So the next exercise, which is also quite good, is gap filling. And for this exercise, I prepared an email, because we are teaching them to write an email. Why not give them another good model? But in this model, they have to, what do they have to do here? They have to fill in the gaps. Yes, what type of exercise is it? Gap filling or open close? an open-close exercise if there are no options. And I will give you 2 minutes to fill in the gaps. Complete this email. Can everybody see what is written on the board? Okay, that's good. So you can work in pairs. In some gaps, there is more than one option. As you can see that in some gaps, you can come up with more than one word. When you finish, let me know so that we can check. Ready? So would you like to discuss the options? So let's look at the first gap. So which word do you think goes into the first gap? Thanks a lot. Any other ideas? Just a lot. Thanks a lot. All right. In the second gap. It's a great idea. It's a excellent, brilliant idea. Yeah, so excellent doesn't work well here, sorry. we can't use excellent because excellent starts with the letter E. So it's a good idea. Any other options? Wonderful idea, brilliant idea, yes, as you said, right. Okay, gap 3. I'm not going to do anything this summer. Any other options? All right, the next gap. Will, definitely. Maybe I will visit. And this is focus on grammar, yes. You showed your learners that they need to use future simple when they make predictions, when they're not sure. The next gap. Help, right. Is it focused on grammar or on vocabulary? Grammar and vocabulary. Right, the next. I think it's necessary to do housework. Any other options? Important, right. The next gap. Give a hand to your parents with the cleaning. To give a hand with the cleaning. What do we want our learners to learn here? This collocation, this lexical chunk, to give a hand with the, because quite often they do not remember the preposition, but if they do this exercise and they make a mistake, you correct them, ask them to write it down in their vocabularies or notebooks, they will definitely remember it. Okay, what is the next gap? I clear up, close this. The mess, clear up the mess. Yes, and you again want to teach them what? Fixed expression, collocation. And this is something our learners lack. They know thousands of words, but they do know how to put them together. Because quite often we forget to teach them collocations. We forget to teach them how words go together with each other. Clear up the mess. Yes, the next word. Told me about, yes. When? You told me about your younger sister's concert, probably. I skipped it. When? When is or when was? When is the concert? But you can figure it out, because the next question starts with has. Has she invited? Which means that she has already invited some people, but the concert hasn't actually happened yet. And the next question. What is she going to perform? And again, we focus on what? On grammar. So when you ask them to fill in the gaps in the questions, it's better to focus on grammar, because this is where they make most mistakes. All right, let's continue. Have to finish now. This is a cliche which you want them to know. What is next? Drop me a line. Again, a cliche, right? Keep in touch, a cliche. Hugs and kisses. Yes, right. You can have a look at the options. So actually in the first one you could say thanks a million. Thanks a million because it's informal. Thanks a lot is okay, but thanks a million is also quite good. And these are just my ideas, but there are a lot more. Brilliant and right. So, and the rest is the same. Yes. And these are the resources where you can create these tests. And I actually used the first one, and but there are a lot more. And this is how it works. It's very simple. You will have these presentations. I will send them to your email. You will have everything. You will have your certificate. You will have this presentation. And you will have an email from Macmillan. So, and this is how it works. It's that simple. What you need to do. Actually, I didn't write this letter. Where do you think I got it from? Решу ЕГЭ. So I found that email there. Slightly worked on it because there were some mistakes, improved a little bit. Then I paste this text here, clicked on close text, and you have several options. You can either remove every 10 words, or remove randomly, or select the words which you want to remove. So I used the first one. I used the first one because there was an option that you can choose the words that you want to remove. And since I wanted this assignment to be meaningful, to focus on some words that I want the students to know, I deleted the words that are important. But you can do it randomly. And this is how it looks. You just copy it and insert, paste to the Word page and print it out for your students. Sorry. So the next activity, which can be also very useful, is editing. And what is the aim of this activity? Why do we need to teach our students to edit? Look at this paragraph. So actually, these are the answers to the 3 questions, because what we want our learners to do, we want them to give the correct answers so that the expert put a tick next to the question. The answer is given, yes. The answer is given, yes. So these are the 3 questions. And what is the first question? I often have arguments with my parents about clothes. What do you think the question was? Yeah, or do you often have arguments with your parents? I like wearing casual clothes. What clothes do you wear? it's important for me to be fashionable. Or do you follow fashion, something like that. So what's wrong with this paragraph? No linkers, and definitely that might be a problem at the exam. So we need to edit it to improve it. So this is my improved version. In your message, you asked me about clothes and fashion. So I introduced the topic. Honestly, I often have arguments with my parents about clothes. So this is exactly the same, but I added honestly. Can we use any other linkers instead of honestly? Actually, to tell you the truth, right, they seem to dislike my style. I added this sentence because I want to explain why I often have arguments. Honestly, why did I use honestly the second time? Sorry. I really like wearing casual clothes. So that proves that we need to re-edit this text. So let's replace honestly. Actually, maybe. Actually, I really like wearing casual clothes. And this is exactly the same sentence from the first paragraph. I like wearing casual clothes, but we added actually, and again explanation. Things like jeans and t-shirt, they are so comfortable. Maybe we can remove this sentence, but if we add it, it sounds nice. Can our learners write it? They are so comfortable. It's very simple. All they need to know that clothes are they are comfortable. Of course, it's important for me to be fashionable, or of course I want to be fashionable. So does it sound better? So with your students, you can do the same. You can ask them to give the answers to the questions, and then ask them to rewrite this paragraph by adding some linkers. And this is learning by doing. All right, so would you like to edit this paragraph? Or we can skip this activity because you understand what you can do with this task. Or would you like to try your hand at editing? All right, you're not very enthusiastic about it, but I've prepared one more activity for you, which is called dictogloss. Does anybody know what dictogloss is? What is a dictogloss? So a dictogloss is not a dictation, although there is this combination of letters, D-I-C-T, dicto. It's a classroom dictation activity, but it's not a normal dictation in its sense, in the meaning as we're used to. And in this activity, the great thing that students do it in groups, and I think that most students like doing such things together. And what is the procedure? First, the teacher sets the context for the activity. Remember that we always set the context. If you're going to read the text about food, talk to them about food. Ask them, what is your favorite food? What sort of what sort of dishes do you have for breakfast, lunch, and dinner? So engage your students with a conversation about food. If you're going to read a text about traveling, talk to them about traveling. The next step is explanation. Then the teacher is supposed to say, now we are going to write a dictation, and I will read the text twice. The first time you just listen and do not take any notes. Then I will read the text again, and you will take notes, the key words. After I finish reading, you will reconstruct the text using these keywords, and you will work on this text individually. Then you will work in groups, and you will compare your texts. And finally, one of the students will read the final version. So if you don't want to explain the whole procedure at once, and probably you shouldn't do it. You just tell them, I am going to read you the text, don't write anything, just listen. Then I am going to read you the text again, listen and take notes. Finished? Then please reconstruct the text. I will give you 2 minutes. So when they do this activity for the first time, there is a moment of surprise when you ask them again to reconstruct it in a group of 4. But when you start doing this activity more often, they will get used to it, and maybe you will not have to explain what you are going to do. So would you like to write this dictation? I've prepared one for you. This is the last activity. Ready? So I will read you the text, and I've chosen the topic traveling because I know that we all like traveling and we all miss traveling because we do not have much chance of traveling today. So listen and do not take any notes, just listen. One of the main reasons I love traveling so much is that it puts a smile on my face faster than almost anything else. It's just exciting. Whether you are immersed on a safari in Tanzania or chilling in Southeast Asia, you are having adventures, exploring the world, and seeing with your own eyes those things that most people only witness on the screen. Can you hear me? No? Okay. So now I will read the text again, and you take notes, keywords. I will read in my usual tempo. One of the main reasons I love traveling so much is that it puts a smile on my face faster than almost anything else. It's just exciting. Whether you are immersed on a safari in Tanzania or chilling in Southeast Asia, you are having adventures, exploring the world, and seeing those things most people only witness on the screen. Now I will give you 2 minutes to reconstruct the text. Work on it. There is nothing impossible for an English teacher. Remember that you do not have to have the exact version. You come up with your own version, but try to, of course, use some vocabulary from this text. Have you finished? Almost. So now I would like you to work in bigger groups. So can you work together and come up with the final version? and you work together, come up with your final version of this text. And you also can arrange some groups. Have you finished? Have you come up with the final version of the text? Does anybody want to read? Does anybody want to read your reconstructed text? No? Does anybody want to read the reconstructed text? So of course this text was not for your school learners. And I've selected it because you're teachers. I wanted to challenge you a little bit. Because I've spotted that you were getting bored with all those childish emails. So you needed a real challenge for adults, for adult learners. So does anybody want to read the reconstructed text? Okay, we can have a look at the text, and you can compare what you've written with the text. Was there anything in this text that you found difficult? Some words maybe that you couldn't grasp while I was reading? Which words were immersed? Yeah, you are immersed. Mm-hmm. Tanzania, Southeast Asia. Yes, this is always challenging. Proper names, right? Were there any other complicated words? The sentences were quite heavy, very long sentences. They are quite... One of them was very short. It's just exciting. Okay, and what I would like you to do now is to choose 3 phrases that you think are interesting and you would like to use them in the future. Choose 3 phrases that you really like in this text. You are immersed. So why would you use this one? Puts a smile on my face. Yes, that's very nicely put. Puts a smile on my face. Because we always say, it makes me smile, it makes me smile. But instead we can say, it puts a smile on my face. So sounds very nice, yes? To see something with your own eyes, yes? Yeah, to witness something on the screen, to witness on the screen. Yes, any other phrases that might be interesting? I've chosen this one, so exactly the same as you do. So much for this, and this is something to finish. Well, of course, we want our learners to write more and write not only in class but also write outside the classroom. And how can you encourage your learners to write outside the classroom? You should let them find a pen pal, and there is a special project on Cambridge Assessment English, which is called Pen Friends, and it is for schools. What you need to do is to register and register your school there or your class and help your students find pen pals, and that can be actually fun. I remember having a class last year with my students, and it was organized by one of the publishers. I think it was Pearson, and I found the information on the internet, and actually the teacher was from, where was the teacher from? From Spain, and that was an online class, and there were two groups, the group of my students and the group of students from Czech Republic. And the students got so excited, there was so much fun, and the topic was education. They didn't prepare for that class, and all activities that they were doing were spontaneous, and that was really exciting. And in today's class, I didn't ask you any homework. We were doing all the things in class. So get your learners, find a pen pal. And so these are the references, the website of Macmillan, and a few words about Macmillan. Вы сегодня получите письмо. В этом письме у вас будет сертификат участника нашего сегодняшнего мероприятия. Также у вас будет вот эта презентация, и у вас будет анкета от Macmillan. То есть для того, чтобы получить от них тестовый доступ к их учебным материалам интерактивным, у них есть на сайте несколько интерактивных учебников, которые в том числе и для средних школ, огромное количество. У меня вот есть, например, доступ к In-Company, но это, поскольку мы в ВУЗе работаем, меня интересует больше Business English, нежели чем General English for Schools. Но вы можете посмотреть, какие у них есть ОМК на сайте. И анкета там очень простая. Там просто вы email указываете, что вы учитель такой-то школы, и вы запрашиваете у них этот тестовый доступ. То есть я не знаю, насколько они, на какое время его предоставляют, может быть, на несколько дней. И вы можете ознакомиться вот с их материалами. У них есть какие-то, скажем так, специальные предложения. Если целый класс что-то покупается на группу, то, может быть, учителю будет этот доступ и бесплатно предоставлен. Там можно в этой анкете, там есть внизу строчка, задать какие-то дополнительные вопросы. Do you have any questions? Есть какие-то вопросы? Спасибо большое за то, что пришли. Я планирую организовать еще один семинар по заданию 40. Поэтому с удовольствием вас пригласим на второе мероприятие. Оно, скорее всего, будет уже в декабре тоже. Где-то, может, в 20-х числах. Приходите. Мне показалось, что у нас была очень такая довольно плодотворная сегодня встреча. Конечно, кто-то может сказать, ну, чему тут уже учиться, этот имейл, мы все умеем, мы давным-давно учим наших учащихся. Но я как бы сама тоже работаю больше 20 лет, но когда была вот на этой учебе у Наташи Белоусовой, у Жени, тоже как бы для меня был какой-то eye-opening experience, потому что я поняла, что некоторые этапы мы просто игнорируем, они нам кажутся ненужными, потому что мы хотим что? Мы хотим дать контент нашим учащимся, мы хотим им дать знания, но мы забываем о том, что им это знание лучше добыть самим. Да, вот так построить урок с письмом – это долго, а нам надо быстро, нам надо за 5 минут им объяснить структуру письма, дать задание, сказать, иди домой, пиши. А он пришел и не знает, что писать. Поэтому пусть это будет лучше дольше, то есть мы иногда ставим очень много целей. Я забыла вот этот момент, конечно. Здесь нужно было бы еще о чем сказать, что вот этот writing lesson, то есть какая была цель, какая цель была у сегодняшнего урока, чему мы хотели научить наших учащихся. Дать им представление о том, как пишется личное письмо, имейл, о его структуре, о регистре, какие слова мы можем использовать. Мы хотели дать им возможность потренироваться, то есть мы помимо решали еще множество мелких целей. То есть нельзя вот такую глобальную цель, как научить писать имейл, отводить ей какие-то несчастные 10 минут на уроке, сказав, да это все вот такая ерунда, мы это все пропустим. Нет, это языковая работа, из которой, так сказать, и складываются знания наших учащихся и их умения. Спасибо вам большое. Надеюсь, что мы с вами еще встретимся.